Alice started the day like any other. She was sitting in her favorite chair by the window, enjoying a hot cup of coffee. Her mind was preoccupied with plans for the few traveling to national parks, updating her garden, and possibly buying a new car. After decades of hard work as a teacher at a local school, she could finally enjoy her retirement. But everything changed when she opened the mail. Among the advertising letters and bills was an envelope from the bank. It was a regular account statement that she hadn't looked at in months. Nothing new, Alice thought, but something made her open it. Her eyes ran down the lines, but the amount she saw made her freeze. Her account balance was less than $300. "This must be a mistake," she muttered, feeling her heart start to beat faster. Maybe it's a different account. But the more she reread it, the clearer it became that this was her main retirement fund. The one she had pinned all her hopes on. Alice hurriedly pulled out her laptop and logged into her bank account. The expenses in recent months had been huge, and most of them were completely unfamiliar to her. Though $10,000 transferred to her eldest son Michael's account. $5,000 was transferred to her daughter Sarah's account. $2,000 were spent on online stores she had never visited. This is some kind of mistake. It can't be true," she said, trying to calm herself down, but it looked as if her own children had used her money without her permission. Alice recalled how a few months ago, Sarah had asked her to access her account to help set up online payments. It had seemed like an innocent request at the time, and she had agreed, trusting her children. Now it looked like a trap. She tried to find a logical explanation. Maybe they used the money for something important, she thought, but her doubts quickly turned to anger. Alice picked up the phone and called Michael. He answered quickly, but his tone was wary. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" he asked. "Michael, I need an answer, and I want it now. What happened to my pension fund?" His silence lasted a few seconds, but those seconds seemed like an eternity. "Mom, I can explain everything," he finally said, but his explanation was not clear. He spoke of temporary difficulties and investments that didn't work out. Alice hung up without listening to the rest of the call. Her heart was broken. The people she loved and trusted most had used her. She sat in her chair, looking at her empty account and realizing that her peaceful old age had been destroyed. Alice always appreciated the simple moments. Her day began with freshly brewed coffee and the newspaper news, which she read while sitting by the window of her cozy home. She felt proud to have created this home, which had always been a warm haven for her family. After 30 years of working in the library, helping children and adults find answers to their questions, Alice was enjoying a well-deserved retirement. But her greatest achievement has always been her children, Michael and Sarah. Alice often recalled how Michael and Sarah grew up. Michael was older and always seemed serious. From an early age, he showed an interest in numbers and strategies. Alice remembered him playing chess with his grandfather and always winning, even when he was very young. He dreamed of becoming a financial advisor and often said, "Mom, one day I will take care of our money." Sarah, on the other hand, was a creative person. Her childhood room was always filled with paints, albums, and books about art. She dreamed of owning her own gallery and often told Alice, "I want to show the world beauty, Mom." Alice was confident that her children would achieve great things and always supported them in any endeavor. And after her husband's death, Alice raised her children on her own. It wasn't easy, but she was proud to recall how they overcame difficulties together. Michael was always the one who helped with the household chores, especially when Alice was working late. Sarah, in turn, brought joy with her singing and the drawing she gave her mother for all the holidays. "Ah, we'll always be here for you, Mom," Michael said when she first told him about her fears of being alone. These words became a support for Alice. She believed that her children would never leave her. When Michael and Sarah grew up, their paths diverged. Michael moved to a big city and started working in the financial sector. Alice was proud of his achievements, but often felt sad because of the lack of communication. "Work takes up a lot of time, Mom, but I always think about you," he would say in phone conversations. Sarah opened a small art studio in her hometown. She visited Alice more often, bringing her drawings and helping around the house. But lately, Sarah seemed tired. She often complained about financial difficulties, but always said, "I'll manage, Mom." Even though Alice had always thought of her family as a model, she had noticed a change lately. Michael called less often and his answers were short. "I'm busy, Mom. Everything is fine," he would say. Sarah began to avoid talking about work, and when Alice asked about the studio, she was reluctant to answer. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll figure it out." Alice began to feel anxious, but she pushed the thoughts away by telling herself, "It's just imagination. They are adults and everything will be fine." Alice sat in her chair, looking at old photos of Michael and Sarah. Her heart was filled with love and pride. She didn't know that her trust would be tested the most in years. Alice was sitting at the kitchen table with bank statements in front of her. The same questions were running through her mind. How did this happen? When? And most importantly, why? Her savings, which she had been saving for years for a quiet retirement, were almost gone. The amounts left in her account did not match what she remembered. It must be a mistake. Alice convinced herself. But deep down, she knew something had gone wrong. Alice dialed the bank's number to clarify the information. The operator politely explained that the money had been withdrawn through online transactions. They were transfers to separate accounts that seemed to be related to your family, he said. Family? But who? Alice thought. She asked for more information, but the operator replied that she needed a written statement. As she hung up, Alice felt anxiety building in her chest. Why did this happen now when I need this money the most? Alice decided to talk to Michael first. She called her son, trying to keep her voice calm. "Hi. How are you?" She heard his familiar voice say. "Michael, I have to ask you something important," she began. Alice explained the situation and asked if he knew anything about the transactions. "Mom, I don't know anything. You must have just confused something. Maybe you bought something yourself and forgot," Michael replied, avoiding details. Alice felt that something in his voice sounded insincere. Maybe it's just nerves, she thought, but her doubts remained. The next day, Alice called Sarah. Her daughter was always more emotional, and Alice hoped to get some answers. "Hey, Sarah, I found something strange in my bank statements. Do you know anything about it?" Sarah was silent at first, and then answered nervously. "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about. I would never take your money without asking." But her tone was disturbing, and it did not escape Alice's attention. Why is she reacting like this? Could it be a coincidence? Alice decided to look through all her documents. She pulled out folders of statements, contracts, and other papers from her closet. Among them, she found a copy of the power of attorney she had signed a few years ago when she was sick. Alice recalled how Michael and Sarah had persuaded her to sign the document to help with the bills. At the time, it seemed logical, but now the power of attorney looked very different. Maybe I didn't pay attention to the details then. What did I sign? Alice felt confused. She had always believed that she could rely on her children, but now her faith was shaken. What if it really is them? But why? We've always been a family. She remembered all the times Michael and Sarah had promised to be there for her. We'll always take care of you, Mom. Their words echoed in her head. Alice realized that she needed more proof. She decided to write a statement to the bank to get detailed information about the transactions. Alice sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by a pile of papers. She went through each document, trying to find at least some clue. There has to be something here, she thought, flipping through old bank statements, copies of powers of attorney, and letters. Her heart was pounding with excitement when she found one of the letters signed by Michael. It was a transaction authorization that looked official. But the signature, why does it look like mine? Alice thought. In another folder, Alice found a copy of a contract to transfer funds to an account registered in Sarah's name. The amount was huge, more than half of her savings. The document had her signature on it again, but she didn't remember signing it. They used the power of attorney. Alice realized, but how could they? We're family. Her hands shook as she reread the details. There were transaction dates that coincided with the time she had trusted her children to handle her finances. Alice felt anger begin to boil in her chest. This is not just a mistake. This is deliberate fraud, she said out loud, even though she was alone in the room. She remembered all the times her children had assured her that they would help in her old age. Mom, we will always be there for you, Sarah said. We want you to live without worries, Michael added. But now these words seemed like empty promises to her. Yet Alice decided to check a few more papers that she thought she had already reviewed. She found a copy of an email from the bank that confirmed the transaction in the name of a third party. Who is this? She asked herself, but at the bottom of the email, she saw a note that explained everything. This person was connected to Michael's business, which he had once mentioned. He used my money to do his own thing, Alice realized. And Sarah. Is she involved in this? Alice began to recall things that she had previously thought were insignificant. Why was Michael always in such a hurry when I asked about the bills? Why did Sarah start avoiding my questions when I asked about her savings? All these little details now added up to a bigger picture. She realized that her children were not only aware of the transactions, but they were planning them. Alice slumped down in her chair, feeling the weight of the truth crash down on her. It wasn't just money. It was my security, my future, she thought. Her children, whom she trusted most, had taken advantage of her weakness. I can't forgive them. But what do I do now? Alice realized that she had to act. She decided to gather all the documents she could find and consult a lawyer. Alice sat on the edge of the couch, clutching the evidence folder. Her heart was beating faster than usual and her mind was racing. How did this happen to my family? She asked herself as she looked over the documents again and again. She called her children and invited them to come over for dinner. I need to talk to you about something important, she said, trying to hide the excitement in her voice. Sarah and Michael came over together, discussing their plans animatedly. Mom, do you make something delicious? Who? Asked Sarah, ignoring Alice's serious expression. Sit down, we need to talk, Alice said, pointing to the table. Her voice sounded firm, but her eyes were glistening with tears. The children looked at each other, but sat down, not realizing what was coming. Alice put the folder on the table and opened it. She showed the documents she had found in powers of attorney, bank statements, contracts. I know what you did, she said, looking directly into Michael and Sarah's eyes. You used my money. You sold my future for your desires. Sarah pressed her lips together and Michael leaned back. Ada, Mom, you've got it all wrong, he said. I got it right, Alice's voice broke. Those signatures are forged. You promised to take care of me, and instead you left me with nothing. Sarah sighed and folded her arms across her chest. Mom, you always exaggerate. We just took something that belongs to our family anyway. What belongs to our family? Alice could hardly hold back her tears. It was my money. It was my savings that I've been saving for decades to have a comfortable old age. Michael calmly replied, We did it for you. You don't realize how hard it is for us now. You wanted us to have a better life, didn't you? For me. You did this for me. Alice stood up abruptly. If you wanted to help, why didn't you ask me? Why did you go behind my back? Sarah rolled her eyes. Mom, stop being so dramatic. It's only money. We'll find a way to pay it back. Just money. Do you know what this loss means to me? Do you know what it's like to wake up every morning thinking I might lose my house? Alice felt her strength leaving her. She sat back down and hid her face in her hands. I trusted you. You were my hope, my support. How could you? Sarah and Michael were silent. Their faces expressed neither remorse nor regret. Mom, we can't turn back time, Michael finally said. But we can try to fix things. Just trust us one more time. Alice looked up, but she couldn't look at her children anymore. Trust you again. I don't know if I can do that anymore. She stood up and left the room, leaving them in silence. A few days after the emotional confrontation, Alice gathered the children together again for a talk. This time she wanted to know the whole truth. Her voice was firm, and her gaze pierced each of them. I want to know where my money went. No excuses this time. Sarah and Michael sat in silence, avoiding her gaze. Finally, Michael sighed and said, Okay, Mom, you have a right to know. Michael explained that a few years ago, he had learned about a startup that promised high returns in a short time. It was an opportunity that couldn't be missed, he said, trying to justify his actions. Sarah added, We thought it would help all of us. We could have paid the money back with a profit, and you would never have known. Alice looked at them in shock. You took my money to invest in some kind of gamble, without my permission. You didn't even think about what could go wrong. Michael lowered his head gloomily. But, we knew it was risky, but we didn't expect it to end up this bad. The startup failed. All the money went down the drain. Do you realize what you've done? You've left me without a single cent for my old age. Hada, Alice's voice rose. How could you be so irresponsible? Sarah seemed to be trying to find an excuse. Mom, we didn't mean to hurt you. We thought this was a chance for all of us. But it didn't work out the way we planned. Halua, a chance for all of us. It was my chance for a peaceful old age. You've ruined everything, Alice cried, tears streaming down her face. How could you do this to me? You didn't even ask. You didn't think about the consequences. Michael tried to calm her down. Mom, we're going to fix this. We'll find a way to get the money back. Get the money back. Do you even know how to do that? You've already ruined my life. How are you going to fix it? As the conversation progressed, it became clear that the children were not acting out of a mere desire to make a profit. Michael admitted that he had debts that needed to be repaid urgently. I was in a difficult situation, Mom. I didn't know what to do. This seemed like the only way out, Sarah adding, and I just wanted to help Michael. I thought it would save us all. Alice shook her head, feeling deeply hurt. You should have talked to me. I might have been able to help you, but not at this price. You betrayed my trust." After this conversation, Alice was left alone, wondering how to move forward. Her trust in her children had been shattered, and her financial future was uncertain. Alice sat on the couch in her small apartment, which now felt empty and cold. She looked at the photos of her children on the wall. The smiling faces that used to bring her joy now reminded her of pain. How could things have gone so far? She asked herself. As she remembered how she had always tried to give her children the best. Was this her mistake? Had she spoiled them too much? Alice realized that she now faced a difficult choice. Re-establish a relationship with her children, risking being hit again, or leave everything behind and start a new life without them. Maybe they are really sorry for what happened, Alice thought. Sarah and Michael had tried to contact her repeatedly since their last conversation. Sarah even left a message on her answering machine. "Mom, we want to make things right. Please give us a chance." But could these words change anything? Was it possible to trust them again? Alice realized that reconciliation would require a lot of effort. She would have to learn to forgive, even if the wounds had not yet healed. But would she have the strength to do so? And on the other hand, there was the possibility of leaving everything behind. To start a new life without looking back at those who betrayed her. Maybe I can find peace and happiness if I let them go, she thought. This decision seemed easier, but it brought its own challenges. How to live without her children, who had been the center of her life for many years? Would she have the strength to be alone? Alice imagined herself traveling, meeting new people, and discovering a world that had previously seemed out of reach. This thought gave her hope. Alice decided to find peace with herself first. She made an appointment with a psychologist to discuss her feelings and find a way to heal. "I need to understand myself before I make any decision," she told herself. These sessions helped her realize that her anger and resentment only hurt herself. "My future depends on how I decide to react to this situation," she thought after another session. After several weeks of reflection and internal work, Alice made a decision. She decided to give her children another chance, but with clear boundaries. She called Sarah and Michael and said, "I'm willing to talk, but only if you really want to change. I will not allow you to abuse my trust anymore." It was a difficult but important conversation. Alice explained her conditions. They had to take responsibility for their actions and work to rebuild trust. Alice knew there was still a long way to go. Rebuilding her relationship with her children would take time, but she felt she had made the right choice. Alice took a long look at her belongings, which she began to pack into boxes. Her apartment, filled with memories of the past, now seemed alien to her. She decided it was time to leave everything behind. "I deserve a new beginning," she thought as she put away her old photo albums. After everything she had been through, she felt that the only way to heal was to change her life. Alice rented a small house by the sea, a place where she had always dreamed of living but never dared. When Alice moved in, she felt a strange peace. The sea became her ally. Every sunrise and sunset reminded her that life goes on. She enrolled in a painting class, even though she had never held a brush before. "I need a new way to express myself," she explained to the teacher, who warmly welcomed her to the group. Among the new friends and classes, Alice gradually found herself. She realized that her life was not limited to being a mother or a victim of circumstance. However, even among the new experiences, the past occasionally reminded her. Sarah and Michael sent letters and messages. "Mom, we want to talk," they wrote. Alice kept these letters in a drawer, not knowing whether to respond. Are they really sorry, or are they just afraid of losing me for good? This question kept running through her mind. I don't know, she knew that forgiveness could free her from the burden of resentment, but was she ready to take that step? One day Alice met Mark, a man who had also moved to this town after a difficult period in his life. They became friends, shared stories, and walked along the beach together. We can't change the past, but we can create a new future, Mark said one evening, and these words stuck with her. Alice began to realize that her life could be filled with new people and emotions, even if the wounds of the past had not yet healed. One morning, when Alice received another message from Sarah, she sat down at her desk and began to write a reply. I am ready to talk, but only if you are honest. She wrote, and then hesitated for a long time about sending the letter. He decided that she shouldn't rush. My life is not just the past. I can move on, but that's my choice, not theirs, she thought as she put the letter aside. Alice's story ends with a scene where she pictures on the terrace of her new home. The wind from the sea blows through her hair, and on the table is an unfinished letter to her children. Ask the lie. If this story touched you, please subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts in the comments. Will she be able to finally forgive? Will she find peace with herself and her past?